What's up, y'all? Back at it. Another free FreeChinaPost update. Thought I'd do just a little quick mention of what's going on. I kind of have been talking about it on and off, just like mentioning it on the side, but there was obviously that big Biden Xi Jinping meeting. So we can talk about that real quick. The big thing that everyone's talking about mostly is Taiwan, which is kind of refreshing that people are paying attention, but it's also frustrating because there's a lot of bad takes, and also, mainly just the bad takes, but also there's always the threat that when people get all fired up about it, you know what China might do. So that always kind of sneaks in your mind because, I mean, they have promised that they'll, just murder everyone here if they can take the land. So, that doesn't ever feel good. That being said, there's also been a lot of, a lot of confusion. I just watched a video from, I believe it was, I shouldn't say the wrong video, one of the major news outlets in the United States, and they totally butchered the one China policy. So they said that the one China policy, they said that, first of all, that both Taiwan and the PRC agree to it, and that it states that Taiwan is a part of China. Just flat out incorrect. Like one of the largest news sources arguably in the world, but definitely in America, just totally getting it wrong. It was from CNBC, by the way. I just looked it up. Idiotic. Like, complete journalistic malpractice there. So, again, stay away from mainstream news. They probably won't offer any sort of correction for that. Whereas, if our little rinky-dink news source here if we have some mistake like that, first of all, I don't think we'd ever make a mistake that big. But if we did make a mistake, we would try to come and correct it later. But anyway, this was a little... So Biden had made some comments basically about Taiwan independence. So everyone was like, ooh, is Joe Biden supporting Taiwan independence? Because he's made a number of blunders basically saying that the U.S. would military back Taiwan, which is not the U.S.'s policy. The U.S. basically maintains a policy of ambiguity. They kind of say that they'll protect Taiwan, and obviously they supply them with arms and stuff, but their strategy is basically one of ambiguity, where they kind of just leave it in the ether, and who knows what they're gonna do. So he got some questions on the tarmac here, pulling a Donald Trump, and talking to reporters on a noisy tarmac.
Mr. President, what happens next on Taiwan?
Look at that drip. Ooh.
Couldn't hear you. Mr. President, what happens next on Taiwan? You said you talked to President Xi about it, but it's clear that there's a lot of tension on both sides. Nothing happened.
Here's another thing. Xi Jinping is not a president. He's not the president. He's the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. Stop calling him the president. Knock it off, folks. Again, C-SPAN. You don't know that they're not... Actually, I don't know if that's a C-SPAN reporter, so let's be fair. He's not...
We're not going to change our policy at all.
Can you clarify what the policy is? Because you said today independence, and in the past
No, I said that they have to decide. They, Taiwan, not us. And we are not encouraging independence. We're encouraging that they do exactly what the Taiwan Act requires. And that's what we're doing. Let them make up their mind. Period.
Can you give us any more specific?
They're trying to mess him up there. They're flashing lights in his face. Very not nice to do to an old man.
About what you talked about last night on this topic?
We talked for...
Also, that's pretty much what U.S. presidents should say. Taiwan should handle its own things, basically. It's up to Taiwan. And, I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any Taiwanese president that's going to, without the endorsement, a pretty vociferous endorsement from probably, especially the U.S., but a number of countries, they're not going to declare independence because that's obviously it's been said to death, but that's China's red line, and that would probably start an invasion right there.
3.5 hours, and that's the essence of the bottom line.
By the way, what I had read from a number of these things is basically that they talked for a long time about their trips, their little trips, just traveling around together, because Biden likes to talk about how much time he spent with Xi Jinping.
Look, I made it clear all along that we're going to abide by the rules of the road. What constitutes international airspace is international airspace, no matter what they say. There's no air identification zones.
That's what he's talking about there is basically, and I've talked about it on here before, is basically these escapades by these Chinese fighter jets into Taiwanese airspace. So it happens constantly. We saw actually, I believe October was the highest amount ever recorded of them going into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, which is not Taiwan's airspace, to be clear. It's not. So people that try to act like the jets are flying into Taiwanese airspace, they're wrong, though it is clearly a tactic by Beijing of escalation. So we're talking about these escalation techniques. They're happening on both sides. So, and to be fair, there also have been a lot of ships from Western countries sailing around close to China. But again, there's also allies in the area like Japan, like the Philippines, like Taiwan, that want those ships there to do joint exercises. So the PLA, I don't know if it's exactly an apples to apples comparison, but I'm not going to have that whole conversation right now. But it is not to say that like China's just doing this out of nowhere. Though granted, in this case, when we're talking about China-Taiwan quote unquote relations, China is definitely the belligerent entity here. There's no doubt about that. Taiwan hasn't threatened to invade China for a good 65 plus years or something.
What they call. Secondly, the law of the seas requires and dictates what constitutes territorial waters. We're going to stay outside of their territorial waters, but we're not going to be intimidated or changed to not.
China, on the other hand, does not respect other people's territorial waters. I mentioned the Philippines earlier. They routinely sail into their waters and other waters claimed by places like Vietnam.
Go up through the South China Sea. And
we should rename the South China Sea, by the way. I believe Ari said we should call it the Southeast Pacific. Or the Southwest Pacific. Yeah, the Southwest Pacific, I think is what he calls it. Which I think is a better name. Because you call it the South China Sea, China thinks it's their waters. And they'll keep expanding it with things like the 9-dash line.
Talked about that. There was no argumentation, just a matter of fact. Thank you. You're going to freeze.
Will there be a government delegation to the Olympics?
I'm the delegation.
Oh, yeah, that's very Joe Biden. I'm the delegation.
I dealt with it.
Thanks, guys. All right, thanks, guys.
By the way, I had heard rumblings that they are actually not going to send a delegation. That's kind of their like little protest, which is a pretty weak protest. But they don't want to. We don't want to affect the athletes. So they apparently don't want to hurt the athletes. So they're going to not send any sort of delegation to Beijing for these Beijing 2020 Winter Olympics. But they still are going to send athletes. So they are going to continue to participate. So it's a token at best. I think they should straight up just boycott them. But anyway, this is a pretty quick hot thread, real quick, by Jessica Drunn, and people should go give her a follow on Twitter. But she's talking about, because there's all this confusion about the one China policy, blah blah blah. So what she says is, since people are focused on the U.S.-Taiwan policy right now, using this as a learning opportunity. So she says, we have a one China policy grounded in the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances, and the Taiwan Relations Act, and informed by a series of policy statements over the years. Our one China policy is not Beijing's one China principle, despite the latter's continued insistence that it is. And obviously, this is my editorialization, but a lot of people in the media do a bad job of making this clear and sometimes may purposely muddle the waters. But anyway, continuing, she says the official U.S. policy is that Taiwan's status is undetermined. So again, like I said, the U.S. tries to stay ambiguous about everything in terms of this situation. Next, she says, it is also worth stressing that our one China policy is not an agreement with the PRC. It is our own approach, and we have not and do not consult with Beijing on it. That's very true. And the only thing I can think of close to an agreement, in quotations, is that the U.S. Recognizes the PRC government as sole legal government of China, and the two sides agree to official diplomatic relations. But overall, I'm looking forward to clarification of the White House. So that's the point. Everybody pretty much has their own idea about what this means. Now, there are certain countries that would probably agree with China on their stance, and there's like maybe 15 that would agree that Taiwan is basically independent, though I don't know that they would go that far to say that, because it could cause problems. But hey, that's pretty much where it is, basically. Yeah. So there's really not much else to say about this. It seems like the meeting, everyone's got their little take on it. Like, we can look at some titles here, like obviously healthy debate but no breakthroughs in the critical talks. Okay, so we got that. We got, I guess this is another CNN one. This is one where he kind of got in trouble for mentioning independence. We have here that they talk about warnings over Taiwan. Obviously, Xi Jinping keeps saying you're playing with fire. It's our red line. Blah blah blah. There's talks on nuclear talks. This will be interesting actually to see if this continues farther, because they're talking about potentially holding a summit, basically, that would where they can talk about this kind of like light arms race that's going on right now, especially with nuclear weapons. So we'll see if they actually do something like that and then slow down these sorts of arms buildups. But I don't know. Okay, this is a pretty good article by Brian here about these incursions into the ADIZ that I was talking about earlier. Okay, there's a number of them. Give that a read. Again, I'll post all these links in the description below. At least these ones I think I probably won't post these the CNN ones. The CNN articles, if you know what I mean, folks. Am I right? Okay, I thought I had a different one, but point is, I don't know that much was really accomplished by this. I mean, I would say I generally sit on the side of talking is good, even with your enemies. Maybe not a lot comes out of it, but it does seem like it might ratchet down tensions, and I think that's generally a good thing. I do think that the West in general, but also America in particular, needs to take a big stand on Taiwan, which Biden has seemed to do kind of, but it also is, some of it just seems like rambly and uncalculated, so that's also not good. It does need to be calculated. While it needs to be strong, you also have to do it in an eloquent way. I also think that freedom-loving nations around the world need to take a really strong stance towards China's human rights violations. I mean, they should also call out the U.S. when there are incidents of human rights violations. I mean, when we finally pulled out of Afghanistan, which, you know, drone warfare is fraught with human rights violations in and of itself. I might even make the argument that use of armed drones is a human rights violation just by itself. But I mean, you look at when we finally pulled out of Afghanistan after 20 years of a useless war, and the last thing that the U.S. did was, you know, blow up a carload of children. So yeah, the U.S. also needs to be held to its standard. We need to hold everyone to a very, very high bar of human rights. But that being said, you know, China just annexed Hong Kong, put in a national security law that gets people, you know, half a decade or close to a decade in prison for shouting a slogan like Hong Kong Ad Oil, or Hong Kong Shanghai Jiao, or Free Hong Kong, something like this. You get put in jail for multiple years because of this national security law that they have. Xinjiang, Tibet, which thankfully those apparently were things on the agenda. We don't know exactly what they said or what kind of lines Biden drew on those. I'm guessing he's not calling for Tibetan independence or Hong Kong independence, which is probably what people should be calling for. But it's good to see that they're talking about it, but people also need to get much more strong on this stuff, and they need to be not afraid to say, listen, if you can't abide by this, you're going to be shunned from the international community. I think that should go for everyone. It's obviously a hard ask because of capitalistic greed over the past 50 years, we've sold all of the manufacturing jobs to China, and now our supply line's all live there. And so if we want our cheap plastic goodies, in a moment's notice, then we have to keep good relations with them. Now that's slowly changing as some of the stuff moves to Southeast Asia and India, places like that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I hope to see more. But there's some beginning threads of something that could turn into to good discussions, or hopefully some stronger stances on some of this. So we'll see. Overall, kind of what I expected. Not really that much coming out of it. Some people are saying, "Oh, it's getting heated. Tensions are ramping up," and other people are saying, "Yeah, not much happened." I tend to lean more on the, "Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this rhetoric progresses later." A little doggo barking, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of give a little quick update on that. I just did one of these on the Peng Shuai case that's going on right now, so go check that out. Also put an article up about that, and then I also posted an article yesterday about the mainstream media and their inability, it's not inability, and their unwillingness to cover the strikes going on right now in the United States, the protests, things like that, in terms of unionization and people striking for better quality of life, as they should in the United States. So go check all that out. Go to the website. There's lots of good stuff over there. Ari said he's got a bunch of stuff in the pipe, so that should be coming out soon. We got a new podcast up. While you're over there, make sure to disable your ad blocker, and if you see any cool ads on there, click on those. That helps us out a lot. If you do want to get some cool stuff and have a couple bucks to throw us, you can go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/FreeChinaPost, and you can check it all out. There's all kinds of goodies over there. I've shown you guys them before, but for as little as $3, you can support us, and that goes a long way in making sure that we can, have the time and the equipment and stuff necessary to do what we try to do over here. And hopefully, as the coronavirus kind of eases up a little bit, we'll be able to travel around and do more like interviews and stuff like that. We do have a couple of things that I can't quite announce yet coming down the pipe. The pipe, I believe it's pronounced the pike. But a couple things coming up, some good interviews hopefully for the that'll be on the podcast, and maybe some video interviews as well. So keep an eye out for all that. Make sure you're subscribed, obviously on the podcast feed, wherever you get podcasts, like, rate, review over there. And then also make sure you are subscribed on the YouTube and on the Twitch, and make sure you ring the bells for those, so when we go live or when a new video pops, you can check that out. But I can tell that I've been on here long enough, because I am getting aside from the regular messages I get from you guys that watch with us, I'm getting some spam on the Twitch asking me if I want to become famous and buy followers. And I do not. I do not want to buy followers. I want to just talk to y'all on here. So make sure to come out and hang out with us on the next stream. And I'll talk to you soon. I love y'all. Don't forget, FCP最大.